What does a consultant actually do? Most people actually can't answer that question, even those of us that hire consultants. And that right there is the reason why consulting is difficult to sell. It's the reason why as a consultant, you're always having to over-explain what you do, defend your fees, and almost kind of having to prove your worth at every turn. Like you're paying an invisible tax at every sales conversation. And this invisible tax sometimes eats into our confidence. A lot of the time it slows down deals. And a lot of the time, it keeps us playing smaller than we should as consultants. So in this video, I'm going to break down what that invisible tax looks like in practice, why consulting is difficult to sell, and the mindset shift required to make it easier to sell. By the way, if you're a consultant and you're trying to grow your operations, maybe you're trying to get on stock or you're trying to scale up, I have a free resource you can download. It's called the Consultant Clarity Kit. It contains 3 frameworks. One to help you clarify your positioning. The other one helps you to develop productized services. And the third one helps you to clarify an area of specialty. The whole idea is to put you in a position that makes it easier to sell what you do and grow your operations that way. If you find it interesting, you can click the link in the description to download it. It's free of charge, and I think it's very valuable to consultants. Okay, so let's talk about the invisible tax. Consulting is invisible, right? You can't try it on like a pair of shoes. You can't flip through it like a brochure. And this intangibility is the reason why there's almost always a mismatch between what you tell your clients and what they actually hear. So you as a consultant might say something like, we'll help you map out a growth strategy and guide your team through execution. But what the client hears is, you will come in and fix everything for us. You as a consultant are thinking in terms of frameworks, problem solving, and even long-term solutions. But they are thinking quick wins, deliverables, and sometimes actual magic. This mismatch, this misalignment is the invisible tax. You're paying it when you walk into a sales call. You're paying it when you have to over-explain yourself. You're paying it when you have to defend your fees and your client is pushing back on the fees. And you're paying it when you walk away from a conversation with a client feeling like you had to prove yourself the whole way. You had to prove your worth the whole way. If you're feeling what I'm describing here, you're feeling the pain I'm laying out here, I'm here to tell you that you're not bad at selling. You're simply selling the invisible. And this is why the whole process feels heavier, more painful, slower than it actually needs to be. So let me make this concrete with an example. Back when I was running my agency, a client hired us for brand strategy. So we helped them with their positioning, we helped them with some things around their internal culture, and we also helped them to lay out a strategic long-term content marketing plan. They loved what we did so much that they hired us to implement it. But on top of the plan we laid out in the strategy session, they also asked us to do some other tasks relating to communication as well. Now, what I should have done, so I'm taking some blame here, what I should have done as a lead strategist on that project was to recalibrate expectations both on the client side and on the implementation team side, right? So everybody's aligned. Didn't do that, big mistake. But what eventually happened in the project was that what we were delivering was not aligned with what the client was expecting. And there were many issues. But one of the other issues in hindsight was that I think the client was expecting short-term results, even though we had laid out a long-term plan. This is the invisible tax at play. So to close that loop, the project eventually grinded to a halt and it was quietly shelved. There was no big spat, there was no big argument or anything. It's just the project kind of slowly but surely grinded to a halt and quietly shelved. So that's the invisible tax at play. And this is why consulting is difficult to sell. We're selling an invisible product. And until we're able to make the value visible, the transformation clear, we'll keep paying the invisible tax in every conversation, every project, and every proposal. Now, there's a hidden layer underneath all of this. Most consultants default to being generalists. And understandably so. The idea is to keep our options open, right? Because we feel like if we specialize, then we're saying no to options, but we're suffering from a lack of options at the current moment, right? So that makes sense. But in practice, this generalist approach actually magnifies the hidden tax. And I'll explain how. One, there's a problem with an unclear transformation. The reason why clients hire consultants is because they want something to change. But the way we present ourselves as generalist consultants is by listing a set of services or a set of deliverables. But this doesn't paint a clear enough picture of the transformation we're delivering. And right there, you have the invisible tax because the client has a picture of transformation in their head. They have a before and after. But your services don't paint that picture clearly enough. Even though you as a consultant know what you can help them to achieve by applying these services to their problem. But the misalignment between the transformation they're expecting and the picture you're painting by presenting yourself as the generalist, by presenting yourself through a list of deliverables, causes a misalignment, and right there you have the invisible tax at play. So you have a situation where you're having to explain and re-explain and essentially over-explain what this project is about. You're having to jump through hoops just to get your client to see the value in what you're explaining to them. And so this kind of makes the sales cycle a little bit longer than it needs to be in a lot of cases. The second thing is becoming a replaceable vendor in the eye of your customer. Because your pitch is broad, I can help with strategy and leadership and marketing and blah, blah, blah. Unconsciously, you get compared with other vendors, agencies, freelancers, things like this, and you lose the expert advantage. You get seen as a pair of hands for hire. And this is why a lot of consultants find themselves having to defend their fees and compete on price and things like this. The third challenge is a challenge of compounding. When you're a specialist, every project compounds on the last. Every project reinforces your positioning. Every project reinforces your value because they are all going in the same direction. But when you're a generalist, you're often starting afresh with each project. So today you're working with somebody in healthcare on their internal culture. Tomorrow you're working with somebody in legal or a law firm on their marketing. Next tomorrow you're working with somebody in IT on something else. So it's almost like you're starting afresh with each project. But if you're a specialist, you specialize in a problem, you specialize in solving a problem for one kind of person, one avatar. Each one of your projects are all going in the same direction. So each one compounds on top of itself, and it makes for a better body of work. Arguably, the most important message in this video is this. As a consultant, you shouldn't lead conversations with your services or your deliverables. Every conversation should be led with transformation. You can then talk about your services and deliverables within that context, but they should be led with transformation. And the reason is simple. By leading with transformation, you're able to give you and your customers, a shared understanding of the value of your work. And that shared understanding, that alignment is everything. Because the reason why consulting is so difficult is that lack of alignment. You're delivering one thing, your customer is expecting something else. You're trying to explain the value of what you do, but your customer is hearing something completely differently. If you're able to create that alignment, the project will most likely be a success, and you're most likely not going to spend as much time having to defend your value or your fees or things like that. And this is where becoming a specialist comes in. By specializing in solving one problem for one avatar, you create that alignment before you walk into the room. The person, the client, the prospect already feels like you're the person that understands the problem they have and can bring the transformation they're trying to get. So by the time you enter the room to have a conversation with them, or you pick up the phone to have a conversation with them, you guys already know the conversation to be had. But if you're a generalist, the conversation could go a myriad of ways. So what can you do for me? How can this help me? And you're having to explain, okay, we're going to do this service and that service, and then we're going to do this deliverable and that deliverable. But if you're somebody that specializes in one problem, you're known, you're the authority on a particular problem for a particular avatar. Before they pick up the phone to call you, there is only one clear conversation to be had. And this is the alignment at play. It reduces the friction, it reduces the dilly-dallying and having to explain and having to convince and things like that. So let me give you an example. I'll make myself the example here. I'm a brand strategist, right? And as a brand strategist, I have a set of skills that can be applied to a myriad of problems, a myriad of businesses, a myriad of verticals, a myriad of business functions. And I've worked with people in healthcare, I've worked with people in tech, I've worked with people in financial institutions. I've worked with different kinds of people, right? I work with people in fashion. But recently I decided to narrow my focus. Still a brand strategist, by the way. Everything I'm doing now is still brand strategy, but I'm just applying those skills to B2B consultants. And my aim is to help B2B consultants to sell what they do a little bit easier. Now, by narrowing my focus, I'm able to focus solely on the problems, the nuances of B2B consulting. And this has kind of influenced the language I use to talk about what I do. Before, I'd be talking about brand strategy and, what is branding and how to build brand and this is what you need to do to improve your internal culture, and very general terms that anybody from any business function, any vertical can use, and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But by specializing, I can actually single out problems that B2B consultants face. So for example, I've noticed that most consultants are generalists because they like the idea of keeping their options open. I'm only able to see that pattern and pick up on that pattern and propose possible solutions to that because I decided to focus on that set of people. Being able to single out these problems and these nuances will make it easier for me to get through to B2B consultants. Now, I may decide to narrow a little bit later in the future because, believe it or not, deciding to specialize is not a one-day thing, right? There's an R&D to it. There's a research and development. There's a testing and failing and, trying different things. So that's what specialization does. By specializing, there are some things you pick up on that helps you to build alignment much easier because you're coming from a point of view of you understand the problem they have, you understand the underlying causes. So one of the things I like to do is I like to first help my clients to understand the scope of the problem they're having, and then take that conversation to, okay, this is what is possible. So we'll go from, this is the problem, this is potential transformation. These are the things that we need to do to kind of take you from point A to point B, from before to after, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how I make my conversations with clients about the transformation. And this is why I created the Signature Offer Lab. It's a one-on-one consultation where I work with you to develop a specialized offer and a go-to-market plan that makes it easy for you to create instant alignment with your customers and make it easier to sell what you have to do. So we'll create the offer. We'll come up with a go-to-market plan that helps you to generate attention and demand for the offer and grow your consultancy that way. If that's something you're interested in, click the link in the description to learn more about that. So the shift that needs to happen in order for you to bypass the invisible tax is to go from selling services and deliverables to selling transformations. Like we've already said, the generalist approach means that you're selling deliverables, you're selling services. But the problem with this is that clients can't see the value of those things until after the fact. But if you specialize and you speak from the point of view of the pain the client is feeling and the transformation you can help create to alleviate the pain, then it's easier for them to see themselves in what you do. It's easier for you to create alignment between you and the client that way. And it makes it much easier for them to say yes, for them to choose you, for them to see you as the expert in that field. And when you make that shift, a couple of things happen. One, marketing and sales become much easier because you know who you're going after, you know the problem you're helping them to understand or the problem you're helping them to solve, and it's easier for you to have those conversations. It's easier for you to generate attention because you have one message addressing one problem targeted at one person. That's much easier to manage than talking in broad terms and hoping that somebody understands what you're saying. When you speak in specific terms as a specialist, it's easier for people to resonate. It's easier for people to understand. It's easier for people to see themselves in what you're saying. Another thing that happens when you make the shift is that operations become easier. One thing I like to say is that by specializing, you lay the foundation for scaling up your operations because you're not spread across 20 different problems that 20 different people have. You're talking about one problem or you're addressing one problem that one particular person has. And because you're that streamlined, it's easier to scale your operations that way. Think about it. When you're going after one avatar and you're talking about one problem, it's easier for you to create one, maybe two sales scripts and hire as many sales people on board and train them on one or two sales scripts. Rather than you're creating a sales script for marketing agencies, another sales script for healthcare agencies, another sales script for government, another sales script for another vertical, another sales script for another problem. So when you're specialized, when you're streamlined that way, it's easier for you to scale your operations up, if that makes sense. Now, you might be worried that by specializing, you'll be leaving money on the table, you'll be saying no to opportunities when there's already a scarcity of opportunities seemingly. But this is what I'll say to that. Problems never exist in isolation. If you become the authority on one problem, people will trust you to solve other things. I have an example. I know of somebody that did the branding, the visual identity for a company. They loved the way this visual identity agency, this branding agency, they liked not just the work they delivered, but the way they think to the point where the founders of that company told them that they would like them to work with the architects building their office because they like the way they think. That's a designer, a set of designers working with architects. The idea here is that area of specialty, that problem you specialize at solving, is your foot in the door. It's a way of creating trust with the client. And so when they trust you enough in one thing, then of course they will trust you with other things. So at the core of this shift is alignment. The idea of being specific about what you do makes it easier for more people to see themselves in the solution you offer. And when there is that resonance, when there is that alignment, it makes it easier to sell what you have to do. And then by specializing, by doing less things, you're able to focus your attention more. You're able to make a lot more impact. So that's how to make what you do a lot easier to sell. And that's how to bypass the invisible tax we've been speaking about. So here's the bottom line. The reason why consulting feels so hard is not because you're bad at sales, is because you're paying the invisible tax of being a generalist. Now, if there's something you find valuable and it's something you want to do, I have 2 resources that you can download by clicking the links in the description. One is the Consultant Clarity Kit. It contains frameworks that will help you to clarify your positioning, help you to develop offers, and help you to decide on your area of specialization. So that's available for free. Click the link in the description. It's called the Consultant Clarity Kit. The other thing is the Signature Offer Lab. It's a one-on-one consultation. You work with me to come up with a specialized offer that is easy to sell. We also work on a go-to-market plan to make it easy for you to generate attention and demand for the offer we develop. That's available by clicking the link in the description as well. If you found the video valuable, please like, comment, subscribe, especially like and comment. Comments actually help me to make my next video better, because I would rather be creating content that you find valuable. And by dropping your comments, telling me what you agree with, what you don't agree with, if something is unclear, that will actually help me to make better content. And of course, I'll respond in the comment as well. And then liking the video actually tells the algorithm to share the video to more people. And it's your way of supporting us, and it's free. So come on, I'll leave it at that. Until next time, have a good one.